I'm on a quest to go visit as many beautiful, historic, famous English cathedrals as I can. And today I'm in Canterbury because I've been wanting to see the Canterbury Cathedral for a long time. It's the OG. It's the first cathedral in the country. We're here in Canterbury this morning. We're going to look around the city a little bit. I'm standing here in front of the gate to the old priory, what remains of it. It's now a college. We're gonna walk around the city first and then head into the cathedral. This statue here is of Bertha, Queen of Kent, and it says AD 597 on it. That's important because that is the year that St. Augustine founded Canterbury Cathedral. Here is Ethelbert, King of Kent, also AD 597. It's impressive driving up to and around Canterbury because there's so much of the city wall here, which I don't feel like I've seen that many times in Britain. This place is packed with tourists. And not at all appealing to the tourists is the Canterbury Tales Cat Cafe that's got some pretty weird looking hairless cats. Uh-oh, must be feeding time. Even the Pret-a-Manger has fascinating architecture. Look at these guys. He looks pretty grumpy. And the Mountain Warehouse is in a pretty cool half-timber building as well. Who goes to Canterbury and shops at American Candy and Gifts? I don't get it. I do love this old weaver's house from 1500, beautiful. And now, of course, it's an Italian restaurant. I absolutely love the architecture on this building, the Royal Museum and Free Library. And this is a really old building. It's from 1118, and it was originally the Canterbury Pilgrims Hospital of St. Thomas. It's a hot day, so those punting tours do look fun, but we don't have time. Canterbury is a really crowded and touristy place, but honestly, it's really nice down here by the river. This river walk is more quiet and peaceful and pretty place to hang out away from the crowds.
Hot day and we were in the mood to eat something healthy with lots of vegetables, so we came to this Veg Box Cafe where they specialize in fermented vegetables, which are supposed to be good for you. So let's see how it tastes. We got a frittata type thing and a big bowl full of a bunch of salads. Everything is plant-based.
This is the beautifully restored entrance to the cathedral quarter. And this here next to it is a part they're still working on restoring. The doors are just beautiful. I have to admit, as a YouTuber, I am sad to walk up to a cathedral and see so much of it in scaffolding because, you know, it's just kind of a bummer to have the beautiful cathedral obscured by all the scaffolding. But as someone who loves old architecture and wants to keep it around forever, I'm glad they're doing that restoration. Look at this tower here. Beautiful still, but then look at this tower here that's had the restoration work done. It's stunning. And yeah, you look at these pinnacles here. They're just pristine. So just like going to visit Gloucester Cathedral, which I do often, we're always seeing the new bits that they've shined and polished and restored, and I'm really glad that work is happening. Canterbury Cathedral was originally a Roman and then Saxon place of worship, but it became England's first cathedral when it was founded by St. Augustine in 597. It is a place of such architectural, historical, and religious importance. So I hope to recap all of those things briefly in this video. It really is the most popular place of pilgrimage in all of Britain. More on why later. The present cathedral is mostly of late 12th century construction. The nave is a masterpiece of perpendicular Gothic architecture from the 1300s. The Norman crypt is England's best. The Trinity Chapel shows the beginnings of Gothic architecture in England, and the 12th and 13th century stained glass in it is the loveliest in the country. The central tower is the finest in the UK, with an absolutely incredible fan vault. The cloisters are noteworthy for the heraldic bosses, which are expertly restored and very colorful. What made Canterbury such a popular place of pilgrimage is that Thomas à Becket was brutally murdered in his own cathedral right here in 1170 by the Knights of King Henry II. 3 years later, he was canonized as St. Thomas of Canterbury. He became the most popular English saint and therefore brought the most pilgrims to visit the city of Canterbury and this cathedral. His remains were in a golden, jewel-encrusted shrine from 1220 to 1538, when King Henry VIII saw to it that it was dismantled, demolished, and his bones burnt. And for a nice touch, Henry even kept one of the rubies from the tomb on a pinky ring that he wore. Henry VIII did this vengeful act because he felt that Thomas à Becket represented Catholicism. This nave was being constructed in the late 1300s, around the same time that Geoffrey Chaucer was writing the Canterbury Tales. Similar to what I've heard in other cathedrals, you have to imagine that when this place was built, it was brightly colored. The columns, the ceilings, the bosses were all brilliant colors. And these windows would have all been colorful stained glass as well. But between the religious upheavals in the 16th and 17th centuries, as well as the bombing in World War II, most of these large windows no longer have their stained glass. This pilgrim's passage was built in the 1400s as a form of medieval crowd control because all the pilgrims were flocking here to the shrine and they needed to redirect them away from all the other activities happening in the cathedral. This is the door where the knights came in who killed Thomas à Becket. And this is the shrine to the spot where he was murdered. This window is a modern window from 1954. It was given to the cathedral by the Freemasons of Kent and features the royal family. This is here in the middle of the whole cathedral quarter, and the cloisters surrounded it. And it was through them that the monks walked during all of their daily activities. The cathedral was where they came to worship, but all the other monastic buildings surrounded these cloisters. I absolutely love the cloisters of Gloucester Cathedral, but these bosses really are outstanding, as is the fan vaulting. Behind this door is where the monk lived who was in charge of preparing and serving all the food. And this nifty thing was the serving hatch through which he dispensed the food. It's kind of like the world's first drive-through for monks. Naughty graffiti people from the 16 and 1700s. This is the largest medieval chapter house in England. I haven't been in many chapter houses. The one that I really remember is the one in Wells Cathedral, which is extremely different from this one. This huge rectangular shape is unique. The vault is quite elaborate in a different way to the rest of the cathedral. This elaborate ceiling was completed in the early 1400s. That is the throne where the prior, head of the priory, would sit underneath this magnificent stained glass window, as all the monks sat around the edges of the room discussing business of the priory. Beautiful stained glass on both ends of the chapter house. And I just have to say, does anyone else feel like Henry VIII does not deserve a place on this beautiful stained glass window, given his history with this cathedral? I can't show you the crypt because no filming is allowed, or talking. This stone screen was built in the 1450s, and its purpose was to separate the monks in the choir from the common people in the nave. In fact, it's significant that the nave is on one level, Then you walk up these stairs to the choir, and then at the far end, walk up more stairs to the altar, getting higher and holier and closer to God. The dark wood of the choir is in contrast to the rest of the cathedral. You can see that there's still places in the choir marked for noteworthy people here in Canterbury. Here in the choir, you can see that the outside walls are Norman, but when the choir was destroyed by fire in 1170, it was rebuilt in what is the first example of Gothic architecture in England. This mixture of sandstone and marble also distinguishes this area as being Gothic. Here is the cathedra, the bishop's throne, which is why this place is called a cathedral. This amazingly preserved painting from 1470 tells the entire story of St. Eustace. It's a sad story, so I'm not going to tell you the whole thing. You'll have to look that up. I'll just point out that this is a deer and a vision of Jesus between its antlers. Communion cups from the 12th century, 16th century. Now we are standing in the water tower. It was built 850 years ago to store water for the monks here in the priory. It's interesting to me that the monks place such a priority on water and cleansing, because if you read up on the hygiene habits of the Tudors and earlier British monarchs, the British aristocracy back in the day did not bathe very frequently themselves. I thought this was super cool. It's like the 10th century equivalent of a gold watch or a wristwatch today. It is a personal sundial that a monk would use. It's an amazing artifact. It was only uncovered during excavations in the cloister in 1938. This tomb of King Henry IV is from 1413. He requested that he be buried in Canterbury. Some of the original brilliant colors from the paint remain, though he is missing a few fingers. The Black Prince led a very colorful and dramatic life. At age 16, he won his first battle and made a name for himself as a brave and strategic soldier. He went on to marry a princess from Kent. It was a love match, and they had to have special permission from the Pope because they shared a grandfather, which sounds a bit dicey to me, but what do I know? He went on to win many more famous battles and had a happy marriage, but sadly died from disease when he was only 46 years old. This tomb of William Courtenay, the Archbishop of Canterbury in the late 1300s, sadly had his hands broken off by Oliver Cromwell's guys during the Civil War. But look at this happy dog at his feet. It's fascinating to see all of these stories of the monastic life captured in these stained glass windows. During the dissolution of the monasteries, Henry VIII had the Benedictine monastery closed and the monks went back to Europe, but the cathedral remained and became an Anglican cathedral. This is the corona where the crown of St. Thomas of Becket's skull was kept in this chapel, and pilgrims would come here to honor St. Thomas as well. This military chapel here is really amazing. It's really beautiful with all the flags and the bosses and the colorful tombs. This is the Canterbury War Horse, honoring the over 8 million horses that died during the First World War, many of which traveled through Kent. This is the corona from the outside, and interestingly, it does rather look like a crown. Here is a view of the water tower from the outside. Here's the monk's herb garden, or herb garden. And I'm actually really impressed with the fact that the monks were so big on cleanliness and bathing and washing their hands every time they went into the cathedral, and then also caring for one another in the infirmary and using medicinal herbs to cure diseases. It really seemed like they were pretty ahead of their time.
And just when I was heading out the exit to leave, I noticed this on the cathedral. A statue of Elizabeth II. I didn't even know that was here. How cool is that?
I hope you enjoyed this visit today to Canterbury Cathedral. If you're a fan of cathedrals, I hope you consider checking out one of my other cathedral visits from Wells, Durham, or Gloucester cathedrals. I will link them here and in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and do something good in the world today.